do. So
thank you very much, Dave. So yeah, Dave is somebody I've worked very closely with over a number of years. As he says, Dave's a health and safety specialist. So good to see you here today, and pleased that we can make a little bit of make your time when you're being furloughed productive, which hopefully will be coming to an end fairly soon. So thank you, Dave. Moving on then to David Jenkins. David, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, David Jenkins. I'm working for Village Council as a health and safety officer. I've got about 15 years experience as a health and safety officer, delivering training to a diverse group of workers, from office people to management to people on the tools. Mm-hmm. So very interested to learn more, basically. Thank you. To get the message across. Yeah,
thanks a lot. Excellent. Moving on then. Keith, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, thank you, Ian. I'm Keith Smith, and I'm an independent health and safety consultant. I've had 42 years as a member of IOSH, and I've delivered courses across the UK and in Europe on a wide range of health and safety subjects, from stadiums to stately homes to manufacturing, etc. So I'm very interested in this project with Ian, and looking forward to gaining some new knowledge on it. So thank you very much. Look forward to it, Ian.
Great. Thank you, Keith. Moving on then to Matt. Matt, would you like to introduce yourself, please? Hello, Matt. Are you there? We'll try Matt in a second. Peter, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Hello, Peter. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Hello, my name's Peter Richards. I'm the Health and Safety Manager of RJ Lifts in Pemberton. I've got about 15 years experience from a health and safety training background as well. Prior to, I've been with RJ a couple of years. Prior to that, I've done about 12 to 13 years in the oil and gas industry, mainly in Southeast Asia and the Middle East. We've been using Human Focus for quite a while to get messages across. However, we're looking to develop it even further. I'm quite experienced in like the ADDIE approach to training, the analysis, design, development, implementation and evaluation. We're looking at this as a possibility way of going forwards of putting out things such as toolbox talks. Yeah. Ideally, yes, I know it's better when people are present, but we're looking at putting them out electronically wise, and then obviously when we're going out and auditing and meeting the lads, reinforcing it that way. So looking forward to how we can utilise this for the better of our workers.
Brilliant. Thank you, Peter. That's definitely a good point you're making there. I mean, face-to-face is, never going to go away, and it's obviously the ideal scenario, but it's not always possible. And obviously in the current circumstances, it's difficult. So yeah, having this ability to at least supplement any face-to-face sessions that you might offer is certainly going to be an important thing moving forwards. So thank you very much, Peter. I don't know, Matt, are you online now? Can you hear me?
Matt's actually a colleague of mine. He's our training manager, Ian.
Okay. All right. So we'll take that as Matt's introduction there. Thanks a lot, Peter. We'll hopefully hear from him later. So moving on then, Ralph, are you around, Ralph? Can you hear us? Hello, Ralph, are you there? Okay. Apparently not. So at the moment then, if Ralph, you do manage to jump in at some point, we'll certainly hear from you later. All right, so welcome everybody. That's generally the group that gives you a feel for, you're all of, hello?
I'm Glenn Manners.
Hello, Glenn, sorry.
It's all right. I just wanted to make sure I was in the group.
Sorry, Glenn, I missed you. I've gone down the list. Glenn, please introduce yourself. Sorry. Thank you for reminding me that I missed you. Please introduce yourself, Glenn.
No worries, I'm Glenn Manners. I'm a health and safety consultant and trainer now, but I started on the tools in the construction industry, worked my way through into project management, and then became managing director of construction and civils company. A couple of things very pivotal changed my whole view on health and safety, and I changed all the systems in the company, got trained myself so that I could train all my staff. The company dissolved in 2008, and I took up a role as CDM coordinator and trainer, particularly for the CITB. I do a lot of training now and a lot of site work. I prepare a lot of RAMs and do a lot of inductions on site as well, particularly for civil engineering.
Brilliant. Thank you, Glenn. Thanks for the introduction. And by the way, if you know what this kind of Zoom sessions are like, it's not always dead clear who's saying what, who's around. So please feel free just to jump in at any point, stop me, ask questions. This is a small group. It's intended to be interactive and as much as anything didactic. You know, I will respond to your points, to your issues, and mold this session to your needs. So please just feel free to shout.
Yeah, I've got one. I've got one. Is it possible? Should I be able to see all the others? Because when it comes up, I just see a black screen in Keith when I speak. So should I be able to see? Have I done something wrong here?
No, you've done nothing wrong.
At
the moment, if the other, you don't have to, but if you, it's often, you know, damages your bandwidth if you use your video camera. Okay. So maybe not others have got it on. The main thing is you'll be able to see my screen in a minute. As we move forwards, Keith, it's a good question. When we do in future weeks, when you come back, you will be able to share your screens and with the group. So I'll be able to hand over the reins to each of you individually. Okay. So essentially what we'll be doing is I'm going to give you some information today. After today, I'm going to ask you to go away and take any project you have. It could be a presentation that you're about to give. It could be a toolbox talk. It could be your policy statement. It could be a method statement. Anything you want. It's your material. I'm going to ask you to take the information that I'm going to give you this afternoon, and I'm going to ask you to look at this presentation and breathe over it and adjust it in accordance with the guides and the information I'm giving you. So next week, you're going to come back and present your presentation to the group, and the group can have a look at it, and we will give you feedback individually as to what your presentation is looking like. So you'll get praise for the good stuff, you know, thumbs down, go and have another go at the not so good stuff. And this is really where you're going to learn a lot from each other, because it's all very well me sitting there standing, you know, well, you should do this, you should do that, but go and have a go, try it, come back, and you'll see where the challenges are and where you're struggling. So this isn't going to take a lot of time. By the end of next session, not this session, by the end of next session, you will be in a place where you can take your presentation and get it online in about 5 minutes. So we're going to take some baby steps. It's a bit like an onion. We're going to peel back the layers, but certainly within the end of the second session, you'll be able to publish your content online. Okay, so again, if there are any questions, just jump in, not a problem. I'm now going to share my screen. And so basically I'm going to give you some information. It's not going to be a huge amount today. It's not going to take a lot of time. In fact, the introductions have probably taken a fair bit of today's session. So I don't want to overwhelm you, give you a bit of information, follow up. You'll have a link to the recording, a little handout to remind you of the key points. You're going to have a go at implementing this stuff. And then next week, you're going to come back and we'll look at the results. Okay, everybody okay with that? And,
yes.
Yep, no problems.
Oh, yes, no problem.
Okay. Great. So let me share my screen. Okay, so let me present. So this is today's session. I want to cover with you these 7 points. What we call, so we're looking at your presentation. So the way we work at Human Focus is there are lots of whizzy tools out there for e-learning, digital production. We've never used them. we've always tried to keep things really simple. And so the basis, the platform we produce all of our content on is PowerPoint. Why PowerPoint? Because actually it is a pretty powerful application, but it's also one that pretty much everybody can use. And it's the application that our clients are using. So if you can use PowerPoint, and even if you haven't got great skills, you will be able to produce content and you will be able to get it out there. So a lot of what we're looking at will be revolving around how to use PowerPoint to get your content in a format that's ready to get up online. So today is just putting in some of the fundamentals. So you've basically got your presentation good to go. And then next week, we're going to go, right, okay, this is now you take this presentation and get it up online. So the 7 things I want to look at, and these are absolutely fundamental. One is what we call chunking. I'll tell you what that is in a minute. Second is syncing picture and audio. Third is some basics around slide layout. Fourth is legibility. I mean, some really, really simple things can mess you up online. Because don't forget, a lot of people potentially will be looking at your content on one of these. I can tell you that the human focus system is fully mobile enabled. It will run on any reasonably modern Android or Apple device. And I can tell you that the usage of our system on the mobile end is just doing this. And the desktop is doing this. So increasingly, this is what people are using to access content. That's brilliant if you think about it, because they're out and about. And if you can get short, sharp, very concise information out there, you can be influencing what they're doing at the moment of doing. They can pull this out of their pocket, and I'm going to be showing you how you can place this content that you're pushing out there in future weeks. You can place it into the environment with a QR code system, and Dave will know about this more than perhaps the others, but we can actually give you QR codes that you can put on walls, in documents, and on machines. You scan it and they can access a piece of content that you've developed at that moment, at that time. So it's very, very important that we get the legibility right, because if the text, for example, is tiny to begin with, it's going to be virtually unreadable when it gets onto one of these small screens. So we'll look at legibility briefly. We will be getting majorly into pictorial storytelling, show, don't tell. And that we will cover, we'll get a little bit into it this week, but next week I will show you how to do visual storytelling, because visual safety is the way to go. That's what the science is telling us. People learn far more from pictures than they do words. Having said that, words are still important, words are needed. You will have words. Human focus courses still have a lot of words, of course they do. So we do need to look at bullets and how we use, by bullets I mean text bullets, and I'll look at what's called paraphrasing bullets. And I'll also look at what are called graphic bullets, where we don't just have a load of text, we can start to put some graphics in. And then finally, I'd like to look at titles. So there it is, there's seven basic elements. So taking the first one then, chunking. I'll just come out of this slide. There we go. So chunking, this is just fundamental piece of psychology. The way humans take in information is by what's called chunked information. So if you give people a whole string of numbers all together, like, even say a dozen numbers and go, blah, 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 there's 12 numbers. So, I find that difficult to remember. This is why when you look at phone numbers, they're spaced into chunks of 3, 4 numbers, depending on whether it's a mobile number or landline. So with a landline, it's 0121, then a 3-digit sequence with the area code, and then a 4-digit sequence with the actual number. So there's 3 basic chunks of information. So rather than giving it in one long sequence, it's chunked into 3 pieces. And the way the human brain works, that makes it a heck of a lot easier to get that information in. So chunking your information, if you take nothing away else today, you must remember this. You've got to chunk your information. So the way I like to help colleagues and clients to remember this is, think of it like this. You think of a Kit Kat chunky bar, you know, it's a chunky, and this piece, it's big, there's lots, but they break it into these big chunks, and you can break them off, and it's far more edible. So there is a prize next week of a Kit Kat chunky bar for the person who does the best job on this particular part of our presentation, which is chunking. Now, there's three main elements you need to think about in terms of chunking, and one is the slide limit, the amount of information you put onto any one slide in your PowerPoint presentation. The other is to think about, within any one PowerPoint, you're obviously going to have, well, not obviously, because not everybody does it, but the best practice is to chunk your presentation. So that means sections. So basically I'm showing you 7 chunks here, 7 sections to the information I'm giving you. It's not one big section. So you've got to look for the sections in your presentation. And then finally, if you've got a lot of information, you might start to develop, say, a PowerPoint slide that's got, we've had clients come back and say, okay, Ian, here's my presentation. I've got 62 sections. That's great, isn't it? And I'm thinking, this is like War and Peace. It's massive. So there comes a point where you go, this isn't one presentation. This is about 6 presentations. So you've got to look, if you've got a lot of information, you're going to want to start to chunk your overall pieces and say, actually, there's like 4 modules here. There's 4 or 5 separate presentations. They can all be linked. It can be on. So this is what we would then call a course. It's a course with, you know, so an example there, you know, Keith, you'd be familiar with this, like a NEBOSH general certificate. They don't say, this is NEBOSH. They say there's, I think it's about 5 or 6 modules, and in each module, then they chunk. Yeah. So you have to break it down. And again, I can't say this enough. The more you break your information down into little baby chunks, the easier you're going to make it for your audience to take this information in much more rapidly and to remember it. So let me just give you an example of, you know, we receive lots of presentations in from clients who we then help to go through. We do the work, so we turn this into online training content. But let me show you, this is a presentation. And by the way, if anyone's not seeing my screen or there's any problem, please just shout, drop me a chat, or just shout out if it's not clear. If I go into slide sorter, so this is what, you know, came in from a client. Here it is. So there's 30 slides, you know, and you can see it's, so, you know, don't be shy, right? But just tell me, you know, how does this compare to the kind of presentation you might put together at the moment? Is this kind of like similar to what your slides look like, or is it worse? Is it slightly better, or what?
Probably about the same.
Okay, so that's great. You know, there's nothing wrong with that. So anybody else? That's from Dave, yeah.
I would say my first impression is, and some of them seem a little bit crowded.
Yeah.
But that's just my opinion.
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, how does this compare with I mean, would your slides be less crowded than this, Keith?
Well, I was only referring to some of them, actually, Ian. Some of them look exceptionally good, and some of them look a little bit crowded. Okay. But some of them are okay, in my view. Some of them I think there was one particular one. I think it's number 10. Is it number 10 or 11? Is it 11? Yeah, that one.
Yeah.
You know, that would be something I would be trying to avoid, reduce down, and make larger font, maybe, or whatever, the bullet points. I don't know whether anybody else agrees with me, or.
I find it to be quite heavily text driven.
That's what. Yeah.
You know, I think there should be. I mean, that one you're looking at for prime example. I mean, you've got 4 parts to that. Ideally, you could split that again into 4. Like we say, a picture paints 1,000 words. Absolutely.
So yeah, that's a great point, Peter. So brilliant observations there. Generally speaking, this is a long way away from where you need to be. So I'm showing this as a poor example. None of these slides really stand up to any decent scrutiny. You definitely would not be wanting to put this online. And what I'm going to demonstrate to you is how you can turn something like this very rapidly into a far more engaging presentation that has got, this has just got no hope really.
Apologies. I was trying to be diplomatic.
No, please don't.
I wasn't sure whether they were your slides.
No, they're not my slides. And the person who provided them won't be offended at all. He doesn't claim to be.
That's right.
He just dumps off. So look, that's the information in that I want to get out there. You sort it out for me.
That's okay.
But I'm just showing this is not unusual. And I'm sure you've been to presentations where you get this kind of thing shown to you and you think, oh my dear, what's going on here? So it breaks a lot of rules. The first one is simply this. This is, if you go to page format, page setup, and you can see it's a 4x3, and it's kind of like the old kind of size that would fit on an old projector. So there's still a lot of people producing PowerPoints on these smaller scale, and then some narrow scale, and then some people go kind of mad with it and go, oh, I'm going to put on this really wide screen, which goes on these modern ones. What you need really for most e-learning, including for mobile, is 16:10, this one here. So you need to first of all get your slide layout to 16:10. So don't worry about this, you'll have the recording, I'll remind you of these settings. So 16:10 is a bit wider, it's not full widescreen, but it just gives you a little bit of extra width, and it does, if I just take that down, it fits nicely into the video window. So that's the first thing. The second thing, so let's talk about chunking. So I think it was Peter that said, be wanting to break these slides down. Absolutely. So this slide, let's take this slide. This is just way too much information for one slide. So again, if you think about the way this is going to end up when it's online, is each slide is effectively going to be, because what you're going to put up there, you can put PDF videos, but PDF documents. But what I'm going to show you is how you can rapidly turn this presentation into a video-based with audio, and it doesn't have to be your audio. It can be but spoken audio very rapidly as a video, and that's very rich and engaging. So each slide is going to be a number of seconds of video that's going to be given to the user. So if you've got this, it's just going to be there. It's a mass of text. It's not chung. They're going to be brain dead by the time they get to about the second or third bullet point. So if I just quickly copy that and paste it in the text into a Word document and just see how many words are on that slide. They are word count. So there's 160 words on that slide, 160. So that is at least twice as long as it needs to be. Just 1 second, get my notes. So you want a maximum of 80 words, and even 80 words is getting on the long side. So really, ideally, you want around about 40 words per slide is your ideal, because 40 words gives you good pacing, because the slide will change. Something is going on, and it gives you nice individual slide chunking. So aim to get about 40 words per slide. You can go to, 40. You can go to 80, but it's getting a bit long. So once you go above 40, you're thinking, how can I split this? How can I chunk it down, chunk it down? Because remember, as it changes to the next point, that's a bit like the telephone number. You're moving on to the next block of numbers, and that helps the learner to take the information. So you've got to chunk the slides. Do that by looking at your information. By all means, write your words and think, right, okay, the next thing you've got to do is, right, that is at least twice as long as it should be. It's probably 3 times as long as it needs to be. So you probably split this slide into easily 3 slides, maybe even 4. It's okay to come lower than 40. So the other element then is chunking the overall presentation. So if I put this onto slide sorter, so you can see there are 30 slides, but again, you can see there's no obvious set of sections in this presentation. If you go to this introductory section, you can see there is an inherent structure here: why, what, how, for example. So there might be 3 sections, there might be more, but there are certainly 3 there. So we might have an introduction, we might have why, what, how, and then some. So there could be like 5 sections, so as a minimum. But where are they? As I go through and I'm looking at the titles of these slides, it's just completely not obvious. So the next challenge you have is to bust the slides and say, that's the first section, that's the second section. You've got to clearly define your set. So you're chunking the overall. Once you've got the individual slides, you've got to then say, what are the sections? And again, slightly shorter is better than longer. So let me demonstrate. If I go to this presentation, and this is one that was made earlier, close that down. Be careful here not to. There we go. So this is a presentation, a PowerPoint presentation that is a human-focused program. This has actually been produced as an online e-learning program. You can go on and have a look at this if you want to, not a problem. But if I go to slide sorter, so you can see this has got 158 slides in it. Now, the way we work at Human Focus is, and when I play an editing role in looking at these presentations. And before I even look at any individual slide, I'll just put it onto slide sorter view like this, and I will just immediately flip through it like that. And the way we work is you see these black slides here? Each one of these black slides denotes the beginning of a new section. See that? So you can see this has got an introduction, and then it's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. It's got 11 sections with the introduction and summary. So that's the first thing. So the other thing, I can just see visually how long each section is. So if I go and look at this one, that's got this hierarchy of loan working controls. It's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 11, this is just an end graphic, and this is another marker screen, which is for test questions. So that's got 11 slides. So what I can tell you is if you conform to the 40 to 80 word chunking per slide to get your slides right, as long as you don't go over that maximum, then you do not want to go beyond about 10 slides. 10 slides is a comfortable amount. You can go a bit more, so you can see that's just over that limit, but you can see they're all pretty much in that region. 1, 2, 3, this is a bit of a longer one, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. So that's got 16 slides. So I would immediately think, that's a bit long. We're really pushing the limit there of the chunking limit. But let's just have a quick look at some of these slides. Let's go to that one there. Look at that. There's the number of words. So it's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22 words. It's a very short slide, and it's also very graphical. Pretty short. bit longer, very short, pretty short, bit longer. So, okay, I can see this. It's tipped the limit, but I can see the slides are well below the 40 mark. So actually, you could combine some of those slides and still be within. So it's not a hard and fast rule. It depends on how long each slide is. So if you're well below the 40 limit, you can flex it, because these slides are going to be flipping over quite quickly, and therefore that section is not going to be too long. So what you're going to end up with a program, with a presentation like this, each one of these sections, if they are within the slide limits are okay chunking, these section chunks are going to give you around about 2 to 3 minutes of video footage, which is, again, we've learned and the science shows is a very nice sort of amount of time. You go beyond that, the viewer's starting to get twitchy. So what we're going to be doing, and we'll look at this in a later session, you're going to give them some video, and then there's going to be some interaction. You're going to ask them a question. They're going to have to respond to something. So 2 or 3 minutes, right, tell us what you've seen, show us your learning, interact, and then we'll move on to the next section. So that's it, that's chunking. It's not rocket science, but you'd be amazed at how many, well, perhaps you'll not be, but you'd be amazed at how many presentations do not conform to these basic standards of a chunked limit on the slide, a chunk limit to the sections, and then the final chunking is looking at the overall length of your presentation. So again, this is probably, in my opinion, is as long as you'd want to go. About a 10 to 12 section e-learning program or presentation is where you want to be. If you've gotten beyond that, you've got to say this is more than one presentation or more than one e-learning module. So I'm going to have module 1, module 2, module 3. So then what you're doing is you're looking across all your slides and go, right, I'm going to chunk that out into that module. I'm going to chunk this. So chunk, chunk, chunk. And again, because the reason is somebody can go through this particular presentation. We've timed it. They can complete this, including all the test questions and the end test. They can do that in about 20 to 23 minutes. It's a nice amount of time. Once they get beyond that, it starts to get quite a lot. And, you know, even if you want them to do it back to back, that's okay. But it gives them this sense of, I've progressed, I've finished that, now I'm moving on to this. I've finished that, I'm now moving on to this. So 20 to 25 minutes, again, is a nice amount of time. Less is absolutely fine too. Are there any questions or observations on that? That is chunking. Chunking slides, chunking sections, chunking the overall presentation.
Yeah, I thought that was very good, Ian. Couple of points. I thought the word chunking is good. I thought the rule of the 40 best number of words is good. And just one final observation from the slides that you put up. I just counted on one slide the number of the word the in a slide. I would never ever use the word the in any slide. And I noticed on, I think it was the one you put up, slide 11. I don't know which one it was. Not from that one, the previous one we were discussing.
Oh yeah.
The crowded, when I said it was crowded, yeah. The word the, and now I don't know whether any of your colleagues or any of the other people.
What's your objection to the word the, Keith?
It shouldn't be there, ever.
Tell me why. I'm not disagreeing with you, but tell me why.
To cut the number of words down. You know, when we talked about the configuration of a slide and the amount of things when you look at it, the word the, you never need it. Yeah. So that's always a good test for me when I look at a slide. Does it have the word the in it? Because you can take any slide and just by removing the word the, you can bring it down to a massive difference by doing nothing, only that.
Good. Any other comments, observations? Everybody okay with that? You comfortable with that? Do you already do that, or is that kind of new information?
I'd be interested in to to ask how many of the others agree or disagree with what I've said.
I never thought of it before, but looking at it now, it does make sense. Looking at Ian's slides, when you look through it, now you mention it, I can't even see the in it at all at the moment. So makes sense.
Okay, good. All right, so if you're already doing it, brilliant. This will be a piece of cake for you. If you haven't done this before, then please, this is going to be your first little challenge. Go and take one of your presentations, have a look at it, look at the length of these slides, you can see whether you need to break them into multiple slides, look at your sections, check you've got clearly defined sections. If you haven't, create them, make sure the sections are not too long. It's very often, oh, I've got 20 slides. No, break the section in half, even if you call it section 1A, section 1B, but look for the logical breaks in the content. And that's often the challenge. And think, oh, that's all about the same thing. Well, find a way of logically breaking it into two if it's too long. And then obviously don't go too long in any one program. Okay, so there is our first bit. What we're now going to look at is, is basically syncing the picture, and by picture I mean what you see on the slide, with the audio. And so again, the way we work at Human Focus is that in the notes section below the slide here, we take this as being the audio. This is what you can create from this. I'll show you this next week. You can automatically create a spoken audio very rapidly. You can do your own spoken audio. You can get professional. There's lots of different levels or ways of doing it. But this becomes your voice, what we call the voiceover script. So this is the audio, and this is the picture. So by picture, I mean not just a picture, I mean also text. So the key thing with text and picture, and there's a magical thing here that goes on, and I spend my life with my content team and others is syncing the audio with the picture text. And the very worst example that I saw of this was he was a lawyer, and he was giving this presentation about a legal claim on product liability, and he had a set of slides. And he was talking, and what he was talking about was brilliant. It was really interesting. He was an interesting speaker, but his slides and his bullet points bore absolutely no relationship to what he was actually saying. The two were completely cognitively dissonant, you know, and it creates this mind bend where you, hang on a minute, he's saying that, and I'm reading this, and it is really confusing, and it's an absolute no-no. But in fact, it gets even more subtle than that. Even slight differences in the text and the spoken word, even if it's essentially the same, but maybe a word is swapped over, again, it just creates extra mental workload for your trainees. So you want to get as closely synced as you possibly can. And in simple terms, hear what you see what you hear. And if the two marry up, it's magical. It makes it flow, and it makes it much easier. And again, I can point you in the direction of e-learning packages where they are abysmal in terms of this syncing. You're hearing one thing, and you're getting this information on the screen, which is completely different. So in a very simple terms, you know, what you should do is, let's say you've written something in a Word document, or you've got a PDF, and it's all the words are there. Maybe it's a bit long. You're going to want to bring it into PowerPoint, and you want to start to create your slides. But so let's say, you know, you've got a set of words like this. You can either paste it onto your slide, or you can paste it into your note section, doesn't matter. But the number one rule is, whatever you paste into one, paste it into the other. You get an absolute duplicate copy. So, you know, let's say I've pasted it onto here, you copy that, and let's say this was blank, I would paste that into here. Now I know that these two are completely identical. and we'll look at syncing. We'll look at getting, which was Keith's point, which is absolutely right. We need to condense what we actually see on the screen, but we still need it to sync. So you can see here, this is actually slightly shorter than what we've got in the actual voiceover below, but it does actually marry up, what is meant by that, what is meant, some examples and so on. So yeah, that is the important point. So syncing text with voiceover, make sure that they marry up. So what you don't do is paste onto, say, screen or in your notes section and then start writing something different on the other one, because then you're going to have to think, oh, does that marry up? Don't do that. Don't go there. You're never going to get them, or it's going to be a lot of work to make them the same. Paste into one, get a duplicate copy on the other. I'd suggest get your full version in the audio, put the other copy onto the slide. Then you can start to break down or paraphrase effectively the bullets on screen. So this is that's it. That's syncing. Make sure that the audio and the bullets are synced.
Just a quick one on that, Ian.
Yep.
Is it quite simple to, like, if we use, where we're going to sync the audio to the actual parts on the slide, what happens if we use an animation? So say you're using, the simplified version of animation of text coming in from the left or right.
Yep.
Is it quite simple to sync your actual speaking parts through the animation bit as well?
Yeah. So there's two practical ways of doing it. There's the third is still possible, but it's more expensive and more effort. The two practical ways of doing it is, one is within PowerPoint, you can basically screen record. So once you've got your presentation together, we'll show you how you, like I'm doing here, you can pull your presentation up, or you or a colleague with a reasonable voice, get your microphone sorted out, and you can just talk through your presentation. So what you would do is you print off a hard copy of your presentation with your voice, with your notes, and as it comes up, you can basically read your voiceover. And if there are animations, you can then just pause and wait for the animation and then go on to your next. There will be some fluffs. There'll be maybe a few ums and ahs. It doesn't matter. This is not, we're not trying to create a Hollywood production here. This is getting out, say, a method statement or a simple toolbox talk, and a little bit of humanity there is absolutely fine. So that's one way you can do it. The other way that I'll show you next week is completely automated. You can basically take your, and it takes seconds to do, and I will show you how to do it, but you copy and paste that, load it into a little app, and it comes back as a little MP3 file, and it's text to speech. So it's a computer speaking. Again, it's not completely human, natural, but these text to speech generators now are very, very good. And in my opinion, more than good enough to get out this type of content that we're pushing out. The brilliant thing about text to speech is it's really rapid. It's easy to change. If you need to change one slide out, you go, blah, 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 right, put the new audio in, off you go. It takes seconds to do, and you don't have to sit there presenting it and narrating it yourself. So those are the two ways, if you want audio, two practical ways of doing it. The third, by the way, is you can pay a professional voiceover artist. We do this at Human Focus, but I can tell you it's a lot of work. We do it because we're selling off-the-shelf courses and people want these polished sort of presentations, but it's a lot of work. It has to go off to the VO artist. They record it, it comes back. Then you have to video edit it and adjust it just to fit, and it's not practical for this application. Does that kind of make sense, Peter?
Yeah, it does. Thanks very much.
Brilliant. I mean, there is always the option that you deliver this as a video and it's just text only, and the text comes up and there's an animation. That's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. If it's a short piece of information, maybe it's a policy document, 3 or 4 equivalent pages of A4, a bit of text with some animation, and then they sign their signature at the end. There's no reason why you necessarily would want an audio on that. But if it's a toolbox talk and you want to get some concepts across, a bit of audio I think is helpful.
Yeah,
So,
I was trying to look at almost the opposite. So rather than, I know you've said, you copy the text from there, put it in the bottom, and that's what we're going to use for the audio.
yeah.
I think some of the ways forward we'll be looking at is rather than doing that, would be have a picture based, and then the talking does the,
Which is brilliant.
it's the
Brilliant.
talking bit, not the actual. So you wouldn't be copying exactly what's on the slide, because it'd be from what's in your box below, because the top bit would be a picture.
Brilliant. The more you can use pictures, the better it is. So, yeah, and you'd have then a narration going with it. So picture storytelling is where it's at. And the more you can do that, and we're going to give you the tools to do that. I'll introduce you later today, but that is where it's at. But we use a combination of both picture. If I go back to this one, we use a combination of, any of you've seen the human focus courses, we use a combination of pictures and bullet points. So I just go into slideshow. This is what, so these are bullet points.
Yeah.
But they're pictorially based. So we're not just giving people a load of just a simple bit of text. It's contextually there. We're talking about you've arrived at your workspace. Before you stop work, these are some of the things you need to look at. So it's a bit of combination of both. So that's a very typical kind of format that we use at Human Focus. But pictures, yeah, brilliant if you can get most of it across in pictures. Okay, so that covers us off on, just go back to this. So we've talked about syncing of picture and audio. Let's just talk briefly about just a few simple rules about slide layout. And there's no hard and fast way of doing this. If I just go back into from here. So just a few things to think about when you're laying out your slides are, you need to think about grid lines. So the grid lines in this are the red lines. So let's say you've got a title at the top. I'm starting here with text-based presentations. We're going to reduce this down with more pictures in a minute. But let's say you've got a set of bullets like that. It's better if everything just lines up like this as much as possible. There is, personally, I think it looks better, but there is science to suggest that it's just easier to read. Do not go for centrally justified text. That's really, the science there is dead clear. It's just harder for people to read. Left justified is a lot easier for people to read. So that's better. We've got an indent. It's not so good. It's not quite lined up. Sorry, the poorer thing here is, I'm starting to get into legibility. It's lined up, but the text is not as big as it could be. It's kind of bunched up at the top. So you see there's the same text, it's lined up, but it's using the available space. Remember, you're always going to be fighting for space, or size is important on smaller mobile screens. Again, not lined up, and that is better. So thinking then, if you are looking at graphics, again, think of grid lines. So you've got a left grid line. Think about trying to, wherever you want to put your graphics, don't just throw them all over the place. Think about trying to line things up so you can have horizontal grid lines, you can have right grid lines, but the more that you can get some kind of grid structure going, the easier it will be for your viewer to make sense of what they're saying. So that's not great, that's a lot better. It's just, it's more organized. The viewer, all right, okay, I've got that. It's just easier and more legible for the viewer. Okay, so that's pretty much it on let me just bring this back up, sorry. So that's number 3, slide layout, grids. Very briefly on legibility, the rule here is very simple. Let me go from this slide. You do not want to go below, for top title text, you want to be somewhere in the region of 32 to 36 point. Anything smaller than this does not work. Anything bigger, you can go bigger for effect, for visual effect. And there's a lot of these kind of graphical things where the text comes right out and we'll show you how to do that. And that's great. But just for bog standard, here is a title, here's some text. You want to be in the kind of 32 to 36. You can use whatever font you like, but keep it simple. We tend to use Calibri, which is what you're seeing here. Others that are good to use are things like Helvetica, Arial. They're just very simple, plain, highly legible fonts. And they all kind of come out at the same, roughly the same size. Below that, where you've got your actual text, you want to be in the 24 to 32 point range. Once you start getting below 24 point, you're going to start to struggle on smaller screens. And by the time you get down to 12 point, forget it. 12 point is just going to be tiny on smaller screens. So keep it big and blocky, 22 to 32, 32 to 62, 36, in that kind of range. Okay, you know, you can vary that a bit. It's not hard and fast, but that gives you a rough rule of thumb. And again, if I come back to, you know, this one, you know, you can see this is at 17 point. This one is at 9 point. You know, it's impossible. You would never, you'd not be able to read that really on a, even on a projected normal big screen, let alone a mobile. So keep the text big and blocky, clear and simple. Okay, so that covers us off on text legibility.
Can I just jump in there?
Please, yeah.
I agree with everything you said, actually. Thank you. The only other thing I may suggest, I don't know whether anybody else has got a view on it, the bullets, if you make the title and the bullets the same colour, would that be an advantage, do you think, or any views on that? Anybody? Do you get what I'm saying? So if you've got a title, so the bullets underneath would making those the same colour as the title be of any benefit or not? Anybody?
Certainly looks clearer. I suppose when you use colour titles, you're trying to emphasise, but is that in your own mind, or is that in what you're actually seeing from Ian's slide at the start? I think what you're saying is quite apt, that the same colour has the same effect, but it's certainly clearer.
I was just thinking that one of my no-nos is where you've got a title, I wouldn't have a bullet with it, but underneath where you do have the bullets in a slightly smaller font, then I would make the bullet only the same colour as the title. But it's just
the science is pretty clear, and the masters of this are people like Apple, and they're all based on science-based principles, which is simply this. You keep everything reasonably monochrome, and when you do use colour, you use it for effect. If you just splash colour everywhere, it becomes meaningless. And there are times when multicoloured is great and, you know, has an impact. But generally speaking, you want your slides, in terms of bullets anyway, to be pretty much monochrome. But then you can do this sort of thing. You know, if you've got one thing on that you want to really emphasise, put it in this kind of more slightly dull red, for example, it will just jump out at you because it's the only really bit of colour on it. So by all means, use colour or not use colour, but if you do use colour, use it for impact and effect. That's the other way we use this. I don't know if I'll show you one later, but we use a lot of animations, pictures. We've got moving, 3D, 2D. We generally make all of those monochrome. All the background is monochrome. And even some of the workers are monochrome. So they're not real in that sense. But then when we use colour, your eye is drawn to that bit of colour. So we might have a completely monochrome background and somebody walks across and they're in full colour. Your eye is immediately drawn to that bit of colour, and that's the thing we want people to look at. So we use colour for effect. That's what the science says. Okay, moving on because we're running out of time now. We've talked about legibility. This is the point that Keith made earlier, which is a great point, which is once we've got our voiceover below and we've got some text bullet points above, then we do not want the same number of words necessarily on the slide visually as what we're actually going to hear. It's okay to hear some extra words verbally as long as they follow the bullets, but the bullets need to be reduced down so we see less words on screen. So I'm going to show you a short video of paraphrasing. I can find it now. There we go. So this is just an internal training short video that we use for this exact process. And this is just a worked example. It's about 2 or 3 minutes long. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some voiceover text, put it into the note section, create the full text bullets, and then I'm looking to reduce down the number of words for the bullets, but they'll still basically be synced and follow the same pathway. So this is this is the process.
The second part of this as an example, because there's a further point that I want to make about the text you get in off the script. So here I am, got a new slide here. I'm just going to move this slide up as it's the second. Okay, so I'm going to paste my script in here, edit to paste. So you can see these are the bullets. Oh. It's worth putting in a line space on the bullets. In PowerPoint, you do, in the notes section, you do lose all the formatting, so you don't get the bullet items in. So what I want to show you here is if we were to put this last bullet point in as an example, rigidly adhere to work method statements and health and safety risk assessments. And let's paste that in. I'm just going to take these bullets out for a second and just paste that in as a bullet point. Edit, paste special, remember, to keep the formatting, color, unformatted text. Now you can see here, this is actually what is going to be said in the voiceover. But what we've got here is effectively we've got 3 lines of text, and there's just too many words here. And bullet points should really summarize what the voiceover is saying without necessarily saying the whole thing. So what we've got to try and do is cut this down a bit so that it just summarizes the voiceover without saying every word. So rigidly adhere to agreed work method statements. So rigidly adhere to, and we can take out the word agreed, work, and we probably take out work as well. So rigidly adhere to method statements, and we can shorten things like and with ampersand sign, and probably take out health and safety because they will know that this is a health and safety program. So we've cut that down to rigidly adhere to method statements and risk assessments. And that's what will appear visually, but the voiceover will say rigidly adhere to agreed work method statements and health and safety risk assessments. So the basic...
So that's it. That's pretty much how a script writer at Human Focus would work. They would... we didn't write this. This is actually a client's bit of text, but we take that, paste it into the notes section, onto the screen, and then shorten it down. So this is following, I think, the point you made earlier, Keith, which is absolutely right. You want your bullets to be a paraphrased version of your voiceover. You can add extra bits in the voiceover, but they will sync as that comes, even as that comes up as a whole bullet. The audio will follow that and they will be synced nicely, but what I'm seeing visually will be a shortened version of it. And this is what we know works a lot better. Any comments, observations on that? Is that okay?
Makes sense.
Cool. Right, so we are almost there. Let me go back to the agenda. So the other thing then is graphic bullets. And this starts to get into your point, Peter, where you want to use as much graphics as you can, and we'll look at this certainly next week. But let's say you've got a bunch of words like this that come out. Let me just reduce that down slightly. So there's a bunch of bullets. We're using a bit of bold, but it's still a lot of words. And if I've got even 4 or 5 slides like this, you know, it's going to be hard work for the viewer. So if I just show you 2 versions of it, the first one looks like this, comes up like this, this, and this. Obviously, the voiceover will be coming along with it. So that's one way of doing it. Here's still not perfect, but this is a better way of doing it. Title, first bullet, got some kind of a graphic now, and that goes like that, and we do that, and then, sorry, we do that, we do that.
Yeah.
So exactly the same words, they're all bullets, but we've created what we call visual bullets. So there's meaning. So what we've done is we've looked at the bullets and said, what are they actually saying? What they're saying is, you know, if I go back, it's saying, basically, if you don't do this bit here, this implementation, you don't get this. So there's no point doing this if you don't do this. So we're just making that point visually. Oh, that's not happened. That goes away, you know, and then we can, it adds so much value. Do you see that to the presentation? And that takes seconds to do. I'm going to give you a toolkit these little hands coming in and the pointers, it takes seconds to do. Visually, it's painted thousands of words just by making that visual. So this is what we call visual bullet points. So you've not gone to full scale storytelling with visuals. You've gone a kind of halfway step where take a set of bullets, but can I move things around? Can I add a little, this sort of thing? This adds a lot of value, very simple. And I can tell you again, the science tells us that this makes the learning so much more effective. People will take from this kind of slide massively more than they did from the previous one. A lot easier for them to learn from this.
Ian, I think that's brilliant. I like that massively.
Good. Well, I'm going to show you, I mean, this is universal. The trick is having a toolkit at your hands to make this happen quickly, because we can all talk about this, but what I'm trying to give you here is a set of tools that you can run with very quickly and make this happen. And so, but one step at a time. All right, let me end that there. I'm just going to go back to the agenda. Yeah, it's here. So that's graphic bullets. All right, the final thing I just want to cover today before I just introduce you to a few tools that you can take away today, and the little task for before we meet again for the second section is titles. So again, I'm just going to show you a short video clip. So you do definitely want some kind of title on a slide, generally speaking. You may well just have a complete pictorial picture, but generally speaking, you say, this slide is about this. This slide is about this. You need a title. And again, very often titles are not there, or much worse than that, and it's so common, is somebody will create a title at the beginning on slide 1 and go copy, paste, copy, and every slide has the same title. And again, you've got to make your titles meaningful for what is on the slide. So let me just show you this short video clip of a worked example of what I mean by this. So this is creating titles. Here we go.
In this program, we're going to look at how we can create titles to slides. So this is an example, again, of a client-provided presentation. And what often happens is once we've broken the presentation into sections, we often break these into sections based on a series of titles. And the the client will often just use the same title on a whole series of slides that run through that section. So in this instance, for example, causes of infection, and you can see here, basically we've got each of these slides has got exactly the same title on it, causes of infection, which is okay, but it's a bit repetitive and it really doesn't use the title as intelligently as it could do. Really, the title needs to relate to the information that is specifically on that slide. So coming into the slide, it's really a question of looking at the slide and saying, what's this slide about? And often they will have used a subtitle to give you a clue. So in this instance, it says, what is infection? And I would argue that that is actually should be the title of the slide. So I'm going to copy that there, paste it in there and take that out. So this slide is what is infection. Next one, there are two ways infection can affect the body system, right? So this is ways that infection affect the body. Ways that infection affect.
So I'm going to pause it there before I embarrass myself with my spelling there. So, yeah. So you get the idea. You want a meaningful title. Ideally, you maybe have the same title on one or two slides, but beyond that, you really should be moving on to the next point if you've chunked the information, scripted it properly. So please just look at your slides, check you've got a title. So these are everything we've covered here then, and that's it. That is today's session. Those are the main points I wanted to get across. Chunking, slides, sections, modules, syncing the picture, and by that we mean the bullets and the audio, slide layout, get some basic grids going on, legibility, font size, paraphrasing your bullets down to concise summary of what they're going to hear, using some graphic bullets where you can, and getting a meaningful title. Now, honestly, if your presentation got a good mark on all of those 7 points, you would be vastly superior to 99% of presentations that go out there in the world. And you go and look at any presentation and they're going to fall down on quite a number of these points, and some of them in very significant ways. And we know that all of these things are basic barriers to getting your information across concisely and in an engaging way. So the little task for you is go away. I'll send you a reminder of this slide so you can got the list. I'll add a few notes. You'll have a recording of this session. If you want to go back over it, you're welcome to do that. But go and have a look. Go and pick one of your presentations. Toolbox talk, method statement, doesn't matter what it is. Ideally one that you'd like to get out there in the not too distant future, and look at it and go through this list and say, does it conform? Have I chunked it? Have I got the limits right? Is the sections there? Am I syncing picture and audio? Do the layout look okay? Have I got my font size? Have a look at it, adjust it, and then come back and we'll have a look at one or two slides from each of you and say, this is what, this is my presentation, this is how I've done it. And hopefully you can all get a really good mark. And, if you've got all of these points already, that's brilliant. If you haven't, that's not a problem. That's a learning thing for you to take away. So that's the task. Shouldn't take you too long to do that. It's not complicated. What I'm also going to give you in preparation for next week is access to a number of human-focused production toolkits, which next week we're all going to be getting into visual storytelling. So how can we actually almost get rid of, if not all of the bullets, but certainly a lot of them, and how can we tell, or how can we get our information across visually, and how do you tell a visual story? That's what we're going to explore next week. But in preparation for that, I want you to be able to access these toolkits. And I think this is something you've been asking for, Peter, in previous weeks from us. Is that correct, I think?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah.
Yeah. So here you go. We finally got this together for you. So here now it's available to you. So let me just show you what they look like, and then I'll send you all a link to download these toolkits because they're quite big. That's okay. You can have them on your desktop, and then you'll be opening them and copying and pasting from them. So they are in this folder right here. Yeah. So here we go. There are 1, 2, 3, 4. There are 5 of them. The first one, which we call our production toolkit, what this has is, you know, all those hand pointers I showed you. I'll go to the end here. Yeah. So if I go to this one, so the way we put these hand pointers in is we've got this toolkit of loads of them, you know, hands with different size bubbles. We've got red circles. We've got these sort of things. We've got crosses. We've got ticks. We've got circles. We've got ovals. We've got arrows and lines, black, and they're going in different directions. We've got hundreds of them. So you can go down here. So if I go back up to this one here, for example, let's take that one. You go, you copy that, you go copy, and let's say this is my presentation here. You go paste, and you keep it all selected, and I'll put that there, and I'm going to change that to example. So you actually type your text in, and then if I go on to slideshow, slideshow from current screen. So there's the text. Let's say that's come in on an animation, and I go on to the next click. Hey presto, got this nice little animation comes in. You see how you can quickly start to use these. So, and we use that graphic a lot to actually make. We don't use it for the main bullets, but if you want to say, okay, those are the things we're going to look at today, and you know these are important points. You know, we can make a kind of a supplementary point very nicely with that kind of graphic. But you know, you can have a play around with this. You know, you go in and say, let's say, I'll show you a few of this. So we've got things like this. Go and have an explore of it and see what you think of it. I'll just go through some of these. Hand comes in and a box drops down. We've got a little box like that. A box on the right. Little ticket comes up, you know, and so it goes on, yeah? You get the idea.
Yeah.
So you've got a lot of stuff in there. So that's what we call our production toolkit. So these are just basic production elements that are available to you. So these are great for kind of visual bullets without going to full-blown text bullets. So that's one I'm going to send you. We've also got what we call a signs and information toolkit. So this has got hundreds of, so we've got don't do signs. We've got the, you know, the green advisory signs, etc., etc. So these are great for, you know, method statements. We've got the hazard signs. You're saying about do not smoke in this area. Up can come, you know, the sign. You could then draw a circle around it to emphasize. Yeah. So you can see how I can start to lay it. So that's the signs toolkit. Close that down. We've then got what we call a props toolkit. And in the props, I'll just go to slide sorter. I'm not going to go through it all. You go and have a play with it. View slide sorter. So this is 162 slides. And on this is just hundreds and hundreds of visual props, tools, equipment, background items. We've got vehicles in there. So, you know, if I go on to this one. Now, the great thing about these is they're all on transparent backgrounds. You see that? So you can drop these in. You can create them at different sizes. So again, go and have a play with that. Go and have a look. We've got tools here. Again, they're all on transparent backgrounds. So if you're talking about, you know, hand tools, make sure you tidy them up. You could start to play around with all of these and start to make your points visually. So that's the props toolkit. Don't save that. Then we've got workplace backgrounds toolkit. So this is where you can start to, we've got all kinds of backgrounds, offices, corridors, we've got industrial backgrounds. So where you see something like this, don't be afraid to do this, where you can drag it and make it full screen. So these are just often just thumbnail images. So you can start to create an actual scene. So we've got industrial, we've got factories, we've got quarries, and we've got aerial views looking down on from the top, etc., etc. So those are the background, and we're adding to these all the time, by the way. And then finally, we've got human figures toolkit. So we've got office workers, male, female, and we've got industrial work. So again, they're on transparent backgrounds. We've got them from the side, from the front, from the top. We've got them in different postures. And you'll see there's a lot here that, you know, you can create accidents. So this is like a little accident sequence. So you could do a very simple animation here of this one dissolves in, he dissolves out, this one dissolves in, he dissolves. So you get the idea of someone falling. So again, go and have a look at this. The main thing is just be familiar with what's here. And if you feel adventurous, why don't you start to have a little play with it? You know, look at the presentation that you are putting together and maybe start to use some of these graphics with a few little animations. Again, next week we will look at how you can really use this. I just wanted this week you to download them, have a look at them, and be ready to use them next week. Okay, gentlemen, that is today's session completed. A little bit longer today than we will normally do because of introductions and things, but that is it. Any comments, feedback from you guys?
Brilliant.
No, it's really good. Thank you.
Brilliant.
Helpful, yeah?
Very useful, Ian. Thank
Very
you.
useful. Thank you.
Very, very, very good.
So what I'm proposing is, you know, I'll propose same time next week, if that's okay. And if everybody says, oh, I can't make it, then might look at rearranging. But I'll put that out as an email, and hopefully.
Yes, that'd be great. Thank you.
Fine.
Terrific.
Yeah.
Fine, Ian, for me. Yeah.
Yeah, good.
Excellent. If you do get delayed at the last minute and you don't make it, it's not a disaster. I'll send you the recording, watch it, and then you can come to the one after. Basically, the plan is there'll probably be about 4 or 5 of these sessions. And by the 5th session, for sure, you will all be e-learning content ninjas. Okay?
Yeah. Enjoyed that.
Right, so I'll send you all out an email later this afternoon with the links to those toolkits, plus summary of today, and have a play. And hopefully you will enjoy playing around with some of these things. And then I'll see you all next week, same time, same place.
Thank you.
Thank you
very
very
much,
much.
Ian.
Have a great weekend,
Bye.
everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And you. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.